It was late, around 11:45 p.m., when I left the office. The building was eerily quiet, with only the soft hum of the fluorescent lights keeping me company. I stepped into the elevator, pressing the button for the lobby. The doors closed with a gentle ding. The ride down started smoothly, the floor numbers descending one by one. Suddenly, at the 7th floor, the elevator shuddered violently, throwing me against the wall. The lights flickered and went out, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled for my phone, the screen casting a weak glow. Before I could call for help, the elevator jolted again, then stopped completely. My heart raced. I hit the emergency button, but there was no response, just the dead silence. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. I tried prying open the doors, but they wouldn't budge. The air grew stifling, my breaths coming faster. Then I heard it, a faint, scraping sound, like nails on metal. It started above me, slowly moving downward, closer and closer. I held my breath, my eyes fixed on the emergency hatch in the ceiling. The scraping stopped right above it. Suddenly, the hatch rattled. I stumbled back, my phone slipping from my hand, and the light went out. I was engulfed in darkness. I could hear my own heart pounding, louder than the rattling. Then, a whisper, soft and chilling. I see you. My blood ran cold. I backed into the corner, trying to make myself as small as possible. The hatch creaked open, and a cold draft swept through. I squinted into the darkness, barely making out a pair of eyes, gleaming with a malevolent glow. They stared at me, unblinking. A hand, pale and bony, reached down through the hatch. I was paralyzed with fear. The hand grabbed the edge of the hatch, pulling a thin, gaunt figure into the elevator. It moved with unnatural fluidity, limbs too long, head tilting unnaturally. It crawled toward me, whispering in a raspy voice, "Turn around." I pressed myself against the wall, my mind screaming for a way out. The figure loomed over me, its breath icy on my face. Just as it reached out, the elevator shuddered to life. The lights flickered back on, and the doors opened to the lobby. I dashed out, glancing back only once. The elevator was empty, pristine, no sign of the horror I had just faced. Trembling, I ran to the security desk, babbling about the figure. The guard gave me a puzzled look.
"Son, this building's been empty for years,"
he said.
"You must be mistaken."
As I stumbled out into the night, I glanced back at the building. The elevator doors closed slowly, and for a split second, I saw those eyes staring back at me. The elevator doors closed with a soft thud, sealing me in a small, metallic box. It was late, nearly midnight, and the office building was eerily silent. As the elevator began its descent, I leaned against the wall, exhausted from a long day at work. Suddenly, the lights flickered, casting ghostly shadows that danced along the walls. My heart skipped a beat. The elevator jerked violently, then halted, plunging me into pitch darkness. Panic set in as I fumbled for my phone, hoping to use its light. Just as I found it, the elevator lurched again, and I dropped the phone. I heard it clatter to the floor, its screen shattered and useless. A low, grinding noise echoed from above, like metal on metal, sending chills down my spine. I pressed the emergency button, but there was no response, just an eerie silence. The grinding grew louder, accompanied by a faint, almost imperceptible whispering. It sounded like my name, repeated over and over. I pressed myself against the corner, trying to stay calm. The temperature began to drop, and my breath came out in frosty puffs. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, until it was a chorus of voices. They were angry, accusatory, like they were blaming me for something terrible. Then, a dim, red emergency light flickered on, bathing the elevator in a blood-red glow. In the reflection of the mirrored walls, I saw shadows that didn't belong. They moved independently, creeping closer to me. My pulse raced as I stared, transfixed by the unnatural shapes. Without warning, the elevator began to move again, but not downward. It was going up, higher and higher, far beyond the top floor of the building. The walls started to close in, the ceiling lowered, and I felt like I was being crushed. In the oppressive silence, I heard a child's laughter echoing from somewhere close. I turned, and there, in the corner, was a little girl in a tattered dress, her eyes dark and empty. She smiled, revealing sharp, needle-like teeth.
You're not supposed to be here,
She whispered. I screamed, pounding on the doors, begging for someone to hear me. The girl's laughter grew louder, the walls tighter. Just as I thought I would be crushed, the elevator jolted to a stop. The doors slid open, revealing the lobby, but it was different. Dimly lit, with decayed furniture and walls dripping with dark, viscous liquid. I stumbled out, gasping for air, but the lobby was empty, deserted. The doors closed behind me, and when I turned around, the elevator was gone, replaced by a solid wall. I was trapped, alone, in a place that shouldn't exist. The child's laughter echoed around me, a haunting reminder that I would never leave. The day started like any other. A brisk walk to the office and a quick nod to the security guard as I slipped into the elevator. The familiar hum of the machinery was oddly comforting as I pressed the button for the 23rd floor. The door slid shut and the ascent began. Around the 7th floor, the elevator shuddered and halted. The lights flickered and I was plunged into a thick, suffocating darkness. Panic set in, but I forced myself to breathe. I reached for the emergency button, pressing it repeatedly, but there was no response. My phone had no signal. I was trapped. Minutes felt like hours. My heart pounded in my chest, and the air seemed to grow thinner. Suddenly, the elevator jolted and began descending at an alarming speed. I gripped the handrail, my knuckles white with fear. Just as abruptly, it stopped again, the lights flickering back on. The elevator doors creaked open, revealing a dimly lit corridor that shouldn't have existed. I was supposed to be between floors. I hesitated, but the oppressive silence pushed me forward. The corridor was lined with outdated wallpaper, peeling at the edges, and the air was thick with dust and decay. As I stepped out, the elevator door slammed shut behind me, sealing me in this forgotten place. I wandered down the hallway, my footsteps echoing in the eerie stillness. Doors lined the walls, each one closed and uninviting. I tried the handles, but they were all locked. Desperation clawed at me. I turned a corner and found myself facing a door slightly ajar, a dim light spilling out. I pushed it open and stepped inside, finding a small, cluttered office. Papers were strewn about, and an old, rotary phone sat on the desk. I picked up the receiver, and to my surprise, there was a dial tone. I quickly dialed 911, but all I heard was static. Suddenly, a voice broke through, faint and distant.
You're not supposed to be here.
It whispered, sending a chill down my spine. The line went dead. The light in the room flickered, and I heard a soft, shuffling sound behind me. I spun around, but the room was empty. Then, I noticed the reflection in the dusty window. A shadowy figure stood behind me, its features indistinguishable. I felt its cold breath on my neck as it whispered,
You'll never leave.
I bolted for the door, but it slammed shut, trapping me. The lights went out, and I was enveloped in darkness once again. The last thing I heard was the sound of the elevator doors opening, and a voice, soft and sinister, saying,
Going down.
And then silence.